Hi, today we are making double chocolate cherry loaf. This is a fan favorite of my husband and my dad. They love it, and I think you will love it too. If you like chocolate and cherries, it's a good one. Let's go. This recipe comes to us from the back of the frozen cherry bag from Walmart. I took a picture of it and made changes to it because I like to weigh everything, as everybody knows. So first of all, let's pull out all our ingredients. We need our frozen cherries. I've got some left over in a bag, and I've got a new bag, and you want to keep them frozen. We need our flour, cocoa, our granulated sugar. We need table salt, baking powder. We need just one egg, and the recipe calls for vanilla stirred yogurt, but I don't have that, but I always keep Greek yogurt in my fridge, so I'm going to use this, and I'm going to add some vanilla. So I pulled out my vanilla. We need canola oil, and we need chocolate chips. The recipe calls for milk chocolate chips, but I don't have those. I have the semi-sweet, and I'll be using those. You can use whichever ones you like the best or what you have on hand. Okay, now that we've got all our ingredients in place, let's grab our tools. First, our scale. And we're going to need 3 bowls for this one. We're going to need a dry bowl, a wet bowl, and one for the cherries. And we're going to need a whisk, a spatula. I'm going to need a spoon to get out the yogurt. And I pulled out a half teaspoon for measuring and a measuring cup because we're going to measure the oil. So now we've got everything ready to go. We can start to bake. So the first thing we do is we want to put on our oven. We put our oven on to 350 degrees. We want the rack in the middle. I'm actually going to make this in my toaster oven today, and it has convection mode, so I drop it by 25 degrees to 325. Okay, let's get baking. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to measure out our cherries, and we're going to add a tablespoon of flour to them. We need 198 or 200 grams of the frozen cherries. Whoops. Here we go. So I'm just going to use my spoon here to pull out about a tablespoon of flour and toss it in here and use my spatula to mix it up. I'm all about using as few utensils, less to clean up, although everything's going to go in the dishwasher, but if you don't have a dishwasher, you'll appreciate this. So we just toss this up. The reason we do this is so all the cherries don't fall to the bottom of the loaf. The flour will allow them to be suspended in the dough, and you'll get them mixed throughout. Okay, so the cherries are ready to go. Now let's do our dry ingredients. First, we need 217 grams of all-purpose flour. There we go. And now we need 40 grams of cocoa. There we go. And now we need 170 grams of granulated sugar. And now half a teaspoon of table salt, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm just going to use my half teaspoon measuring, so I'll just do 4 of those, so one less thing to clean up. Whoops. There we go. And now we just whisk all our dry ingredients together. You want to make sure we get the lumps out of the cocoa, and make sure all the ingredients get mixed around so when they go into the cake, they're throughout the cake. Didn't take long at all. And now on to our wet ingredients. We want to take our 1 egg and just lightly beat it. And now to that we're going to add 368 grams of our Greek yogurt. And now 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now if you have vanilla stirred yogurt, you can put that in here directly and not have to do this separately, but this works perfectly well. And finally, a 1/4 cup of canola oil. And then we just gently whisk this all together. We're almost done. Comes together super quick. Oops. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to add our dry ingredients to our wet. And now we switch to our spatula because the dough gets quite thick. And you just want to mix this until it is no longer dry flour. So just about till it's combined, because we still have to mix in our cherries and our chocolate chips. And you can see we just about have all the flour mixed in. There, perfect. Now we just need to add our cherries and our chocolate chips. So it's 85 grams of chocolate chips. With chocolate chips, it's always close enough, good enough, and more is usually better. And we take our cherries. And now we just gently fold these in until they're combined. And at first you may notice the cherries do not want to mix in, but just a little gentle coaxing, and you want to get that flour that was, any residual flour that was left in the bottom of the bowl with them gets mixed in too. And there we go. Starting to come together. There. Perfect. Okay. Now, who noticed I forgot to do something? I forgot to spray my loaf pan. So let me get that and spray it with our cooking spray. Okay, I've got my loaf pan and my cooking spray. And we'll just give it a quick spray. It calls for a 1.5 liter loaf pan. I'm not really sure what size this is, but it works perfectly good. It's a very thick dough, so you do have to press down a little bit to get it right into the pan, and you want it into all the corners, and you want to smooth out the top as you go. It now says to bake it for 60 to 70 minutes. I'm going to check it after 50. I think it'll take the full time, but I always want to be careful about it. So now I'm going to go put it in my oven, and we'll see you in 50 minutes. Not clean. Okay, we're going to give it a little turn, and we're going to go for another 5 minutes. Okay, here we go. It has now been 65 minutes. Let's give her a try. It's looking brown on top, so I'm very optimistic here. There is a little bit of chocolate, but I think that's from melted chocolate chips. I do not think it's the batter. I'm going to check in a few spots. Feels nice and firm. Okay, we're going to move it to our rack for 10 minutes of cooling. Okay, it's been cooling for 10 minutes on a rack, and now using a knife, or I have this spatula, go around the edges. Just don't want anything to stick. And we're just going to gently turn it out onto our rack. And as you see what I've done, I've put it onto my hand and then just flipped it over. And now, ooh, it's ooey gooey. Oh goodness, it's gonna be so good. But we now have to wait for it to cool completely, and then you can eat it, but I always suggest to wait overnight because it is so much better. All the moisture will get in all nips. I have a lot of chocolate on my hands. Anyways, it will all be moister then. So we're gonna wait till tomorrow. So I'll see you tomorrow for cutting and tasting. Hi, so it's been overnight. Now I waited until my loaf was completely cooled, and this took about 2.5 hours because it's a very dense loaf, but only in the best of ways. And then I wrapped it in plastic and left it overnight. So let's open it up and cut it and give it a try. I can see all the cherries and chocolate, and oh, I can smell it. I'm gonna cut it with my bread knife. Any knife will work, but if you have one of these serrated bread knives, they're the best. Oh, can you see all the chocolate and cherries? And you can cut this as thick or thin as you like. Oh my goodness. This is chock full of cherries and chocolate. So now let me give this a try. This just it's chocolate and cherries, of course, but it's chocolate and cherries. It's always such a surprise. It's a great loaf. It's moist, but substantial. So cut smaller pieces for everybody. They'll love it. Give it a try. Until next time, keep cooking.